Drafted on Saturday, Sunday. That's the draft. 1-5, we're talking about polynomials.
You're missing your mind.
Oh, you are awesome. Whoever said that. Thank you, sir.
Just gotta jingle that sucker. Why?
You are a little. You gotta have a positive attitude. I don't think you do. Well, in life, you just gotta find a better one. Okay, polynomials, guys. Anything that's being raised to a power, such as this, x to the 6th, is a polynomial. Okay. If I had this, y squared plus 2y plus 1, that's considered a polynomial. Okay? Polynomial. Now, we're going to Google, just because I like to see sometimes what their definition is. Good old Google. We're going to look up the definition of polynomial. Did I spell that right? Probably didn't. Go to good old Wikipedia. We know that's a reliable source, right? Okay. Okay, it talks about a polynomial is an expression consisting of variables and coefficients. Okay, that involves only addition, subtraction, multiplication of non-negative integer exponents. Okay, so what does that mean?
It doesn't have any.
Okay, so can we have, going back to there, can we have x to the negative 6? No. Can we have y to the 3 half? No, because once again, what's the word integer mean? Does anybody know what integer are? They should have said our whole numbers, right? Okay, instead of our integers, because our integers are negative exponents as well. But they said non-negative integers, which is just our whole numbers. Okay, such as our counting numbers in 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 0, right? Okay. So once again, they said it's over addition, subtraction, and so forth. So x to the 6th is called a monomial. Anybody tell me why you think it's called a monomial? Why do you think?
What?
Why do you think? You raise your hand.
Because it's by itself.
It's one term, right? One term, one thing, mono, right? Okay. You have it? Really? I'm sorry. What do you guys call that one, do you think?
Binomial.
What is a byte?
Binomial.
Binomial, right? Two terms. Does that make sense? Could I have a binomial also be like x squared plus x?
Yeah.
What are all the degrees on that?
2.
They're all degree 1, correct? Everybody there with me? Meaning they have a degree. The degree would be 2, yes. We'll get there. Meaning they both have an integer degree. Okay? What would this guy be called? That is a trinomial, right? Notice usually when we do polynomial in standard form, we like to decrease in its powers. You need me to scoot it up for you? Is that better? Just let me know when you get it. Okay, notice we are decreasing in powers. We went from what's the power on x here? 2. What's the x power on here? 4. What's the x power on here? 0. Isn't x to the 0 1 and 1 times 1 is 1? Right? So it is decreasing in our power. Did you see that? Yeah. That's standard form. Okay? So, just to let you know, if it's anything larger than a trinomial, like if it has 4 terms, you just say a 4-term polynomial. You can just say poly. For all I say. Yes, Rich? Why does it matter? It's just considered standard form. That's usually how we see it in mathematics. Does it really matter? No. Will it be helpful? Yes. Okay? Technically, because of addition is commutative, it doesn't matter, right? But standard form does dictate that we go from the highest degree to the lowest. Okay, so the next word we're going to talk about is degree. Okay? Degree means the highest power in the polynomial. So this would be degree 6, because your power is 6. Everybody there with me? What would be degree here? 1 to the x to the first. Degree here? 2, degree here? 2 as well, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Yes, no? Okay. Well, sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, I could have x squared y to the third. That is still a polynomial. What is the degree? Here's 6. Where'd you get 6? You times them. Okay, I could understand that. This would actually be degree 5. Okay, you would just add the powers together. Make sense? Okay, what is this? Monomial, binomial, trinomial, 4-term, 5-term? Still a monomial. Anybody tell me why it's not a binomial? Go ahead, sir. They're still together. It's still one thing, right? Now, if there was a plus in between them, correct, then it would be a binomial or subtraction. Everybody understand the difference there? We okay with that? Yes, no, maybe so. You okay? Okay. Like we talked about last time, the only time we can add like terms is if they're alike, right? When we did our exponents and our rationals and so forth. So, for example, if I had 4x squared minus 3x plus 2, and let's say we subtracted negative 5x cubed plus 2x, okay? I'd like you to write the answer in standard form. How would we go about and do this? Colby, what do you think? Any idea at all? What does this minus sign do?
Change the sign.
Changes what sign? Inside this one, right? Okay. How many guys, did you guys ever take pre-algebra, or are you guys already into the core thing by then? So you guys never had a pre-algebra or algebra class? Okay. So, back when I taught pre-algebra, it was 9 years ago. It was my very first year of teaching. I haven't taught it since. But when I was teaching pre-algebra, like for example, if I had 3 minus 2, my class was not allowed to write this in the core. They could never write a subtraction. Okay? Does anybody remember what they had to do? You had to do what? You had to switch that to be 3 plus a negative 2, right? I was never allowed to write subtraction. I always had to add the opposite number of what was there. So if I had 3 minus a minus 2, we would be 3 plus the opposite. What's the opposite of negative 2? And hence why a negative changes into a positive. Okay? Does that make sense? So it's the same thing here. I cannot have a negative here. I just go ahead and add it. But Tyler, as Tyler said, we just go ahead and switch all these signs, because technically, what is the opposite of anything? It's when you just negate their signs, correct? Does that make sense to everyone? So what I'm going to do here is write this out first. 4x squared minus 3x plus 2. Okay, now I'm going to write it like this. And then I'm going to add the opposite. So what is the opposite of negative 5 cubed? Negative 5x cubed. Awesome. And so therefore, I'm going to put him over here. Notice it's not lined up with x squared because he doesn't have an x squared, does he? He has an x cubed, so I'm going to make an x cubed column. Correct? Okay. What's the opposite of 2x? So I'm gonna put a negative 2x here. Notice I'm lining up the terms. Kind of helps you out, correct? Do you have to do it this way? No, you don't. Okay, so watch what I'm gonna do now. It's just simple addition. Notice if there's nothing there, they're just understood to be zeros, correct? Right? So what's 2 plus 0? Negative 3x plus a negative 2x. Negative 5x. Right there. 4x squared plus 0. There's a 0 there. 0 plus 5x cubed. 5x cubed. Okay, is that in standard form? Is it? Is it decreasing in its powers as we go along? Right? Okay. What would be the degree? This would be degree 3, because your highest value or exponent is x cubed, right? Does everybody understand that? Okay. How would we classify this? Monomial, binomial, trinomial, what would this be? Four-term polynomial. That's what we classify this as. Okay? Any questions on that? Could we all do that? Yes, Rich. Nope, how could I simplify it? Nope, you're okay, I'm just asking. Is there any like terms? See how this guy is x cubed and this guy is x squared? They're describing different things. Now if this was x cubed and x cubed, then I could combine things because they're the like term. But unless they all have, like this is x cubed, this is x squared, these are x's, they're describing different things. Okay, and sometimes if you think about it, this is just like I said the other day, I kind of consider every time they're saying 5x cubed is like 5 apples plus 4 bananas minus 5 cherries. I don't know. You get what I'm saying? I kind of classify them as something else. Now if it was like this, 5x cubed, give me one sec, we'll come back to it, minus 4x cubed, that's like 5 apples minus 4 apples, which I can say is 1 apple. Does that make sense? Are they still the same descriptor? Yeah. Very good. Yes, sir, in the back. Help me name again. Austin.
Why doesn't it multiplication
It does. Division. Because then it can get into negative exponents, which as they discussed earlier, that does not make it a polynomial. Does that make sense? Yes, Rich. This would be my simplified answer. It is a polynomial of 4 terms. Highest degree would be 3, or the degree would be 3, right? Sure.
Minus subtraction sign would be the plus and then the
Nope, you can leave it as that, that's fine. I'm just saying, when in pre-algebra we had to do that, so that kind of gives you the idea of helping to remember. A lot of people, when they have this subtraction, what do a lot of people do? Does anybody know? They take that negative just to the first guy and they leave this guy. How many of you guys have made this mistake when you have like negative 2x minus 4, you leave it as negative 2x minus 4? I bet some of you guys have done that in the past, haven't you? Is that correct? No. Right? That is not a correct thing. You need to distribute that negative 2 to both, right? So it would be negative 2x plus 8. Yes.
Really can go back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Back to the other thing.
If there's like a negative sign in between both, why don't you go to the other side? Like why don't you go negative to the
This
left
guy
hand
over
side?
here?
Yeah.
Because, okay, so when we're subtracting things, technically, okay, I think this is answering your question. So if I had 5 minus 2, I wouldn't go negative 5 minus plus 2, would I? Is that what you're saying?
No. I was saying like, does it, like, can you change which side you,
Negate.
yeah.
So this negative has to go to him.
Okay.
Because remember, it's adding the opposite of the second guy. So it's 5 plus that negative 2. Okay? Everybody good with me on that? Yes, no? Okay. Let's go ahead and let's see. Let you guys try this guy. Okay, go ahead and simplify that and put it in standard form. Standard form. Yeah, that's pretty good. Michael. What do you want to see? Two X. What flavor is that? Jackson? Just orange? I thought maybe a peach.
They don't have that flavor.
I don't know. One time I got this Powerade or Gatorade, cucumber melon. I thought I was drinking a sour. I did not enjoy that.
Did we come out that one time? Had that? It's dark blue. Oh my.
You just thank the Lord for that, dude. Okay. Let's see. Carlos, what did you get, brother? Final answer. No? Why? What's the highest term up here? Am I going to change any sign in these guys? Like I did last time? Why not? Because I have a plus and not a negative, right? Are you okay with me on there? So what's the highest degree? X cubed. So we just put him first. Right? Does that make sense to you? I'm not quite sure. I'm going to help you out. Okay, what's the next highest number up? X squared. So therefore, is there anybody that has an x squared just besides that negative 4x over there? Negative 4x squared? There is. There's this guy right here, 6x squared. So we go ahead and say negative 4x squared plus 6x squared is 2x squared. And sometimes I like to put little check marks above them. Why do I like to do that? Just to make sure that I know I've accounted for it, right? Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. And then next part of it is the x terms. Is there more than just this 2x right here? Sure, there's that 3x, so that's a total of 5x. And then last but not least, we have our constant of 2. Does anybody else have that? Nope. Does that make sense to you, Carlos? Pretty simple, right? We all do that? You think? Pretty simple. Okay. Next one. Now we're getting to multiplication. Huh? Thank you. Okay, how do we do this? How do we do multiplication? Well, let me show you a different way. We've always been just taught the distributive property, correct? Just take this guy, right? Everybody see that? You've all done that, right? Yeah. And then we go, okay? Think about what you did back in elementary. Okay? If you did 23 times 12, what would you do there? Let's just go through the process. Now, you might not like this, but let's go through the process. What would you do? You take that 2 and you times into the 3, right? 2 times 2 is 4, and we put in here. Then what do? Put a 0, and then we go 1 times 3, and then 1 times 2, and then what do we do here? Add, so that's 6, 7, 2. Correct? We all know that process, don't we? Hopefully. Same process here. You could do this process, or if you like a way to maybe help you out, set it up. Just like we did. What do you do? 1 times him. What's that? 4x, right? That makes sense? 1 times 2x squared. 4x squared. It's kind of like putting a 0 here. Now, is it always going to put the 0 there? It is going to move yet, but it might be over here because this might be x squared or something. Okay. X times 2x squared. 2x cubed. And then we add it. Same kind of ordeal, isn't it? Different ways to look at it that might help you out. So that becomes 4x, 6x squared, and 2x cubed. Just trying to help you with a different style. Because we've all seen this guy, distributive or the FOIL process, right? Okay. I'm going to show you another way that I just learned the other day that I've never thought of in the past. Can somebody tell me what I had again? It was 2x squared, right? Plus 4x. And then x plus 1, is that what it was? This kind of helps us a little later when we get to factoring, and a lot of people struggle when I do a part of factoring, they can't see this step, so hopefully this will help us when we get to this. What I'm going to do, technically this is like one number. I know you guys see it as 2 as a binomial because of the plus sign, but as soon as I put a value in for x, that becomes just one single number, doesn't it? Make sense to that? So if I had this, 3x plus 6, what would you guys do? You take this and you multiply it to him. You take this and multiply it to him, wouldn't you? Correct? It'd be 3x plus 18. Well, I'm going to show you the same thing. So therefore, I'm going to take the x plus 1 that I had, and I'm going to multiply it to the 2x squared. Correct? And then the other one was 4x, wasn't it? And I'm going to take the x1 and I'm going to multiply it to him, and then kind of understanding why we go ahead and distribute it to both numbers. Just once again, another way to look at it. 2x cubed plus 2x squared plus 4x squared plus 4x. The other reason I like this is because, once again, it lines up your terms really easy for you. Okay, and then notice what does this become? 2x cubed plus 6x squared plus 4x. Okay? Kayla? No. Keisha, I know it's Keisha. Keisha? Kalisha and Kira. Darn, I was way off. Okay, I was going to go with Kira though. Kira, describe this for me. What kind of a polynomial is it? Trinomial. Does everybody understand why it's a trinomial? Okay, what degree is it? Degree of 3. Is everybody with me on that? Okay. We got one more and then I'm going to hurry and do it. Okay, let's try this. How do you guys think you're going to go about and do this guy? Oh, this is probably being recorded. Okay, so we just distribute it through. So I get 2 times 4 is 8, right? X to the what power?
Cube.
X cubed with a y squared plus 16 x squared y cubed. What is the degree? Degree of 5, and notice we usually like to leave the ones with x's, the lower of the 2 alphabet, first. Whoever has the higher of those, does that make sense what I'm saying? See how this is x cubed and this is x squared, so we leave them first in the term. Go ahead.
Is that a plus sign?
That is a plus sign. Is that better for you? Okay, anybody have a question on that? That would be simple. Could I combine those? Because they're not alike, right? One's x squared, one's x cubed. They're not the same. One's y squared, one's y cubed. You can't add them unless they're exactly the same. Yes? That would be standard form for the reason as I was saying. Usually you take the lower of the two alphabet and go with his powers. Does that make sense? Okay, I'm gonna go run and see for your homework really quick. Give me 1 second.